Welcome back to Join Our Town, and I'm your host, Mitchell Taylor. Our topic today is crime, and we're talking about the effects of incarceration on women and their families. And we're joined today by the chair of the Advisory Council of Kairos Outside New York City, Coralie Joseph. Welcome. And also the financial secretary of the organization, Lloyd Johnson. Welcome also. Thank you for being guest on Join Our Town.
We're happy to be here.
First of all, talk to us about incarceration here in New York City. Talk to us about that.
Okay. New York City has about 62,000 folks incarcerated. About 2,000 of those folks are women. I would say 80%, 70 to 80% of those folks are right here, come from 2 boroughs in New York City. That's 3 zip codes in the Bronx and 4 zip codes in Brooklyn. Those folks, all those folks, mostly everyone, all those prisoners are incarcerated upstate New York. So it is very stressful for the families to go visit these folks and support them. And those zip codes that I mentioned, if a person lives in those zip codes, it's 100% possible that they know somebody incarcerated, whether it's their family, their friend. And the problem with that is that a lot of those people become incarcerated eventually because of the environment and just everything that goes on around there.
So in New York City, you're saying that 70% of the prison population comes from Brooklyn and the Bronx, zip codes that are in the Brooklyn and the Bronx.
Correct.
And 2,000 of those inmates are women.
Correct.
And most of them are in upstate New York prisons.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, give us an idea of what are the most prevalent crimes that you're seeing people committing. Are they being locked up because of quality of life crimes, because of domestic violence crimes, because of, what is the concentration or the highest concentration? Lloyd, you can chime in at any time. You know, what do you see the most frequent crimes being?
Well, I understand most of the crime is drug related. However, in our program, we don't discuss crime, and we don't discuss what the person who was incarcerated did in order to be there. We mainly talk about, I know we're going to talk about this later, we mainly talk about how we can assist the family of the incarcerated person. But much of the crime is drug related. I would say most of it, in looking at statistics. I don't have exact statistics with me right now.
But it's drug related.
Most of it is drug related.
And would you say these people that are incarcerated are the high level drug distributors?
No, I don't think so. It's mostly low level, although I understand that the FBI profile of a person who uses and sells drugs is a young white male. However, unfortunately, the police don't target that community. They target mainly African American communities and non-white communities, Hispanic communities, and so on. So that's why the Bronx and Brooklyn supply most of the inmates who are in the prisons upstate. 91% of the prison population come from New York City.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of writings that have been, presented on incarceration, mass incarceration. One in particular, Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. And when you look back at the war on drugs, they never really got at the drug kingpins.
No.
They just got the low-level people that are users and maybe, you know, small hand-to-hand distribution, and then that resulted in this mass prison incarceration. So I want to ask you this question because, you know, how does this impact women? Because not just women that are incarcerated, but it affects women in general, right? It affects, how does it affect and impact women? And how many does it impact, based on the statistics that you gave us?
Well, if there are 60,000 men in prison and 2,000 women, there are mothers, wives, sisters, children, aunts and aunties that are impacted.
So there could potentially be thousands and thousands. So if there's 2,000 women, there's, you know, there's thousands.
That's right. And for the women, with the children, their children, and I work in the school system, and their children are put in foster homes. Okay? And sometimes they're put away, so they're so far away that the children don't see them once a month, maybe once every 3 months. And when they come back to school after seeing their parent, just put yourself in the place of someone whose parent is locked away, and you go visit your parent and know that your parent may be 6 or 8 hours away. You took that bus in the middle of the night and you came back. You saw your parent for 3 or 4 hours, and you know that your parent is going to be locked away for years. And the feeling, and they come back to school and they act out, and you know, they don't tell folks right away, because when someone has someone in prison, they keep it as a deep, dark secret. And then maybe eventually, after 6 or 8 months of counseling, they break down and say, you know, my parent is incarcerated.
Wow.
And, you know, then the tears start flowing, and then you start trying to help them.
Right.
But then they're living with foster parents. They're living with, you know, aunts and uncles who don't care and love for them as their parent would. And no matter what crime the mother has committed, it's still a mother's love for that child.
Right. And the child is impacted by it because the mother is incarcerated. There's limited visitation and accessibility. And then they act out in the classrooms.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing.
The
that's
other
amazing.
problem with that is if a parent is in prison, there's a 70% chance that that child will be in prison also.
Lloyd, wait a minute. You said that if the parent is in prison, there's a 70% chance
that the child
will follow?
Be in prison. I met the Reverend Dr. Wilson Good, former mayor of Philadelphia.
Yes.
And he works with the Amachi mentoring program, mentoring children of incarcerated. And he was telling me that he met a man in prison when he went to visit people in prison who stopped him and told him, he says, you know, I met my father for the first time in prison.
Wow.
And he says, and I have a son out there. And my expectation is that if I ever get to meet him, it'll be in here. That's his expectation. His father's in prison, he's in prison, and he expects his son to be in prison.
So wait a minute, Lloyd, because you lost me, but you telling me that he met his father not on a visit.
For the first time.
That's why I got confused.
No, they were inmates.
They were inmates. The father and the son were inmates. Didn't know each other prior to this.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
And that's where they met.
They met there.
As inmates in prison, and he expects that will be the same thing will be with his own son.
I got you. I got you.
That's 3 generations.
Cool, cool. Wow. Well, talk to us about Kairos Outside New York City. Talk about the work, and I know it's a multi-level international platform, so talk to us a little about that.
Well, Kairos Outside, this women's ministry, it was came out of San Quentin in California. There is a Kairos outside and there is a Kairos inside. Inside is where we go in to minister to the men in prison. Not just having a service and leave. We stay for 4 days and we do a short course in Christianity.
Wow.
And the men significantly are changed. So this lady by the name of Joe Chapman in California was told by the warden, we have the men changed, but their wives are coming in and they don't understand what's going on, coming to visit. What's going on with this, you know? And the wives want to know. So she came up with the idea, why don't we have a Kairos Outside so that we could support the women and tell the women, and so that the women could be on the same level with the men. And it's just, there are 3 things that keep people from going back to prison.
Yes.
They have to have a spiritual experience in prison. The families outside must be supportive, and they must get some sort of employment to keep them going.
Wow.
So we empower these women by giving them the same course. We empower these women. We give them a chance to come, a place to talk, a place to tell other people how they're feeling, people who really care. We listen to them, we hug them, and they walk out of the weekend feeling truly empowered.
Yes.
Because they
Right.
breathe a sigh of relief.
Right.
Thank God they could talk to somebody
Right.
and other people who understand what they're going through.
This
and
is
it's
powerful.
big relief.
It's good for them to know that they're not
Alone.
Right.
That there are other people in their community. There have been women who've come to our weekend and knew each other from the community, but didn't know that either one had a relative in prison.
In prison.
Now they
become a community.
form a community, and there's a community. Just like Kairos Inside forms a community inside, a Christian community inside of the prison. Coralie did Kairos Inside, she and
For
my
10
wife.
years.
Wow.
Danbury
For 10 years.
Federal.
But see,
Federal
now our
prison.
viewers totally understand this.
Right.
You know, Kairos Inside is
That's right.
ministering to the inmates there.
right.
Kairos Outside is
Yeah.
ministering to the families that are affected.
And there's also Kairos Torch, which is ministers to the youth, age 24 and younger.
Yes.
Now, we have about 30 seconds left.
Okay.
Can you tell us maybe one of the stories, another one of the stories of your experience in dealing with the population, whether it's the outside family or the inside inmate?
Well,
Success story.
Okay, so one success story is this. One of our folks who was on team, young woman who was 26 years old, she was on team, and she was excited about being on team. Doesn't have anybody in prison, just wanted to work with us. A year ago, she was incarcerated in Dominican Republic for some fluke reason, 10 months. And because she knew that we were praying for her, because we knew that we cared for her and we would understand her, she was exonerated. But just the hope and that she had inside of her that we were going to be there for her
Wow.
kept her buoyant.
Wow.
And she's out, cleared, and, you know, but just that the caring. And we sent her notes, we did all sorts of stuff to just keep her going. It's just wonderful.
This is awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and is made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town coming to your home every week. Write to Joy in Our Town, Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.